This is my 1.6 HDI Peugeot Partner 2007, and it has traveled roughly about 105,000 miles. And you always hear about these forums or shops where you go. You can see these injector cleaners, system cleaners, diesel fuel system cleaners, and so on. And I always wonder, do they really work? Do they really clean the injectors? Are your injectors clean after you have put this in your fuel tank? Previously I tried BG245, that you can view the results here. And in essence, this didn't really work. It didn't clean the injectors at all. What's even more, actually the injector was slightly more clogged than I poured this BG245. But this time I've bought Wynn's diesel injector cleaner, and that's the actual bottle that I'm gonna be using. So if you really want to see if this will clean the injectors in the 1.6 HDI engine, stay tuned. So the Wynns diesel injector cleaner is roughly about 6-7 pounds. You can buy it anywhere. Amazon, Halfords, your regular supermarket shop, you probably can buy it anywhere, and it's pretty cheap, 6-7 pounds. You wonder, I mean, the previous one, the experiment that I did with the BG245 was roughly about 25 pounds, and this is 6-7 pounds. It's like 3-4 times cheaper, so one wonders if this will really work. What does it contain? I mean, it doesn't really say anything. It says that it contains distillates C8, C26. These are probably variety of carbon chain, so it doesn't really say what it contains. It probably contains some sort of a cleaner or something that dissolves the carbon particles in the injectors or in your fuel system. But the reviews are amazing. So I'm looking here and several reviews that I've listed from Amazon. It increases power, reduces smoke and everything. But how does it really work? I mean, in general, you pour this into an empty tank of fuel. Then I think on the description it says to pour this whole 325 milliliters in minimum of 20 liters of diesel. And I think I'll put 30 liters of diesel and then run the car, well, go around your usual business. Lots of stops and goes, not just one single journey, but a lot of stops and goes. So the idea is that the liquid or whatever the stuff is inside this injector cleaner to sit in there while the car is off, to sit in there, dissolve, and then you go along and just cleanse it. So basically this gets soaked, the injectors inside get soaked with this injector cleaner and get dissolved and then pushed through, and then your injector get cleaner. So how am I gonna do this? It's not the best test. I'm gonna be using injector leak-off test. It's not the best way, but it's close as a test that I can get to some sort of a semi-scientific approach. So what I'll basically do, let me remove that one as well. Basically these are the 4 injectors, so I'll hook up a return to each of the injectors like a silicone tube. So basically hook this up to some sort of a tubes, run the car on idle on a hot engine, run the car for roughly about 3 minutes, not roughly, about exactly 3 minutes, and measure how much each of these injectors return. I'll do it 3 times. I'll do this 3 times to get an average measurement, so it's not really just to get a more kind of variability of the injectors, not just one single time and I've spilled something or there is one off or something. So it always to be exactly accurate, so I'll get a kind of an average or a mean of the 4 injectors. Then I'll pour the Wynns injector cleaner, top it up with 30 liters of diesel fuel, then go along with I haven't yet poured this one in, go along whatever 300-400 miles or whatever I can get out of the 30 liters of diesel fuel. Then measure again how much of each injector returns, how much fuel each injector returns, and then see if this has really cleaned, if this actually works and has cleaned the injectors in my 1.6 HDI Peugeot Partner. The idea is that if the injectors are clogged, basically the fuel system is relatively under constant pressure, high pressure. If the injectors are slightly clogged, so the injector is kind of here, it's slightly clogged, it returns a lot more fuel. So from these lines it just returns more fuel, because the same pressure, if just this is a bit clogged, this will return more fuel. So when I put this Wynns injector cleaner, and the second time once I've run the car for 400 miles or so, second times I measure this, if this is a cleaner, if it has done something to the injectors, has cleaned them, this will not return that much, will return less fuel back to the fuel tank. Of course I haven't yet poured the injector cleaner, so what I'll do, I measure how much of each each of my injectors return, so to get kind of a baseline, and then do this and see if the injectors have been cleaned and has improved. And this is an injector leak-off test, and if you want to see this video where I have this in more detail and how it works and what are the results for my engine. So this will be mostly on speed dial, because it just will be too long. It will start explaining how I'm measuring. So first, of course, is to measure each injectors. So use this kit. All the components in the description of the video if you want to check them out. It's a fairly generic kit. Let me move it so you can see it. It's a very generic kit. It's got a lot of silicone tubes. It's got a hook that you have these bottles hooked up to. So basically it goes like that. So the silicone tubes with one of these adapters. For my engine I use 0.01. These adapters go onto the injector. They hook up to these tubes. This comes in, so you run the car in idle. This fills up with diesel, and basically you measure how much fuel the injectors return. I'll be using a cylinder, so I mean it's not perfect. I mean it's plus minus 1 milliliter or so, but it's a kind of a semi-scientific approach, so I can measure 3 times and then kind of average the error if in my measurement and so on, and how much these injectors return. One thing to say about this kit is that because the silicone tube goes inside like that in there, and I've drilled a very slight hole in there, so when fuel comes in and displaces it becomes a vacuum kind of, so it displaces the air, so the air can come out of this hole. So I've really drilled a small hole. That's my kind of modification to this kit. It's a pretty good kit. 01 is for my injectors, and it works quite well. So this will be on speed mode because I'm not gonna show in real time undoing the injectors, measuring each one of them. So this will be 3 times each, so it's 12 times altogether. 4 injectors times 3 times is a lot of time. So I'll be on speed mode, how I do it fairly quickly. But if you look at that video that's in the description of the video, it's a more detail how I can do it, how you unclip different things and so on. So first things is to get the base measurement of how much each injector returns. Enjoy! So once I had my measurements, the baseline measurements for how much the injectors are returning in normal without the Wynns injector cleaner, so my tank was pretty empty, not quite completely empty, but was fairly close to the low for the light to get up. There were a few liters inside. So they poured the Wynns injector cleaner inside. This was at the petrol station, and I filled in at the Texaco petrol station. This is a normal diesel, not a premium diesel, and I usually fill at this Texaco because it's close to my home, and I always fill up there. So the Wynns injector cleaner, on the label it says to fill up minimum 20 liters. I was thinking of filling up 30 liters, but somehow got distracted and I filled 37 liters. I've circled that the square is 37 liters. A bit too much than I wanted. Probably I should have done 30 liters, but I did 37. So then I traveled, so this was 37 liters. I traveled on these 37 liters roughly about 450 miles. That's about 725 kilometers. And my tank was, or at least the indicator, the arrow there that I've circled, still shows about the same, close to the minimum, but not entirely the minimum. I never really travel till the light shows up because it's just too low. And in the tank there might be some dirt. It could be picked up, put in the filter, go past, and then your injectors get blocked even more. So I never really go too low. So travel roughly about 450 miles, and the next thing is to see actually if this Wynns injector cleaner has done anything. So the next is again 10 times the speed of the video, measuring again 3 times each injector. But I'll show only the first time because it's just too much. Enjoy. Okay, so a lot of skipping and 10 times speed through this testing, the injector leak-off tests. But just to recap what I've done. So first time around the fuel was minimal, and I did the injector leak-off test 4 times for each injector. So 4, 3, 2, 1. That's how the injector is labeled. So I did without the Wynns injector cleaner. So I did 4 tests. I did 3 tests for each injector just to get the average level. So the fuel was fairly minimal. I poured the Wynns injector cleaner inside the pretty empty tank. It wasn't pretty empty. There were probably quite a few liters inside, probably 5 or 6 liters, maybe more, I'm not too sure. Then I filled up at the Texaco petrol station because it's close to home. On top of the Wynns injector cleaner, I filled up roughly about 37 liters, not roughly, but exactly 37 liters. I meant to fill up 30 liters, but it was just 37 liters. Then I drove 450 miles, or roughly about 750 kilometers, and this was fairly mixed driving. It was some motorway driving, it was stop and goes. I mean, the car was sometimes for a couple of days off. I mean, because it's a pandemic, I don't really drive that much. So this was roughly for about a month and a half I traveled this distance. So it was a lot of stops and goes, that's what I mean. Then I exhausted this fuel to as much as I can, not really to the minimal. When the light blinks and then you have whatever 5 liters left, I didn't really do that, but it's just as close as I normally get. Then I did the test again, the same test, the same conditions. I mean, roughly about the same time of testing, because while I take these tubes on and off, it takes me quite a while. It takes me roughly about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half, maybe an hour and a half, to do the 3 tests for the 4 injectors. So I do it once, measure, then run the car again for 3 minutes. So then I measure it again, and then I run it again, and so on. So all the components that I've used are in the description of the video. So if you wanna check those out, they're there. And then, of course, now I will show you the results, and I really have a good feeling about this Wynns injector cleaner. I never really like those reviews when somebody says, oh yeah, it's smoother, higher pickup, I don't know, it consumes less diesel and so on. But what I had on this engine is, when I started from cold, let's say the car has been overnight cold, so in the morning I started up, the first like 3 to 4 seconds there is really shaking, the whole car shakes quite a lot. And this was before, when I started running this Wynns injector cleaner, roughly about the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th day, so somewhere there, I noticed that this completely disappeared. This shaking really stopped. And I suspect that it has cleaned them quite well. I'll show the result in 2 seconds. But I think it really has cleaned them well, or cleaned them to some extent. Not cleaned them well. I sincerely doubt they'll get to original status, these injectors. I mean, the car is 105,000 miles. But probably has cleaned them enough so there isn't this shaking, because the injectors, when they're cold, it's like the car is running kind of on 3 cylinders rather than 4, and so there is a bit of shaking until it gets warm. Fuel starts dripping in this cylinder number, so cylinder number 3, the injector on 3, it's a bit clogged too much. You can see it on the pictures if you go back. So let's see how the results look like. So this is how the data looks like. This is an Excel file, and I'll have all these numbers in the description of the video if you like to access them and use them in a way that you want. So this is the number of experiment 1, 2, 3. This is before the Wynns injector, before pouring the Wynns injector cleaner. So this is a baseline test. This is after the Wynns injector cleaner, after pouring and traveling roughly about 450 miles, and then recording. So this is injector number 4, injector number 3 from left to right, 2 and of course 1. So these are the values that are recorded, how much each injector returns. So this is the mean, median, standard deviation, and milliliter per minute, how much each injector, because I recorded this 3 minutes for each injector. So what you can see, so the first injector is roughly about an average value or mean value of 37 milliliters returned. The second, so this is injector 4, this is injector 3. So the injector 3 really returns quite a substantial amount, much more than injector 4. And you can see it on the video, this third injector, the second from the left, it's really quite high. Injector 2 and injector 1 are roughly about the same as injector 4. Injector 1 is slightly on the clock side, so this suggests that this injector is quite clogged. So this is the milliliters per minute. I mean, I really looked into that, how much, what is, if an injector is a good injector, how much should it return? What the consensus kind of opinion on the internet is that a good injector should return less than 25 milliliters per minute. So this one, that one, and that one are pretty good. They're roughly about half of that, roughly about 12 to 14 milliliters per minute. This one is 17, close to 18 milliliters per minute before pouring the Wynns injector cleaner. And yeah, it is getting closer, it's getting clogged by as time goes by. So this is after I travel 450 miles with the Wynns injector cleaner, and if you really want to compare those, so this is 34.7 roughly milliliters return for 3 minutes, and this is 37, this is 50, this is 53, this is 34, this is 36, this is 39, this is 42. So what I can say is that this Wynns injector cleaner really cleaned the injectors in my 1.6 HDI. I'm extremely surprised and actually so happy that I managed to find something that cleans these injectors, and this actually worked. I mean, the mean value is 34.56, and this is roughly about 1 milliliter, no, this is 3 milliliters less. This is also about 3 milliliters less for these 3 minutes, and this is also roughly about 2 point something, and this is also roughly about 3 milliliters. So per minute it's also like here it's 1 milliliter, here it's also 1 milliliter, this is also roughly about 1 milliliter, and this is a bit more than 1 milliliter. So what it means is that this really clean the injector is 1.6 HDI. I'll have a better graphical view so you appreciate these numbers. This is just the numbers if you wanna see them and see them like that. But a better view, so a better way to view this data is kind of a graphical format. And this is through the R programming language. I could have done it in Excel, but it's just slightly easier. So if I plot these values from this data, so this is the graph. So this is injector. This is before putting the Wynns diesel injector, these 4 values for the injector. So this is injector 4, this is injector 3, injector 2 and injector 1 from left to right, the same way as they are in the engine. On the y-axis is milliliters return fuel, so this is roughly about 35 milliliters on average, this is 53 or something. This line here is the median. These are these 2 whiskers kind of show the 2 extremes from both sides. I only have 3 measurements. As you can see on this graph, these 3 injectors, the number 4, 2 and 1 are roughly about the same. Injector 1 returns a bit more, so it's slightly on the block side, but this injector number 3, the second from the left, is really blocked. It's 50, I think 53 or 55 or something is the mean, roughly about there. So this really is quite blocked. So then if I plot, so this is before the Wynns diesel injector, so if I plot after the Wynns diesel injector, so you can see, so this is after, for the injector number 4, after the Wynns diesel injector, when I travel roughly about 450 miles, this is lower, so it returns less. For the clocked one, slightly blocked injector also returns less, for number 2 less, and for number 1 less. So in other words, I mean, it has really unblocked all the 4 injectors. So this is extremely good success. I mean, graphically you can actually straight away you can see it. I mean, what I can do, I can quickly calculate. I mean, could this be due to chance? Just happened. I mean, I had 3 measurements and so on, but I kind of did a small linear mixed effects model. It's fairly simple to do, and what I can show is that, well, this is a p-value 10 to the minus 9. What this shows is that this result is extremely unlikely to be due to just a chance finding. That it just happened that while I was measuring, they just somehow returned less. I mean, for each of the injectors, really, you get quite a much lower value. This is in complete contrast to the BG245, my previous experiments with another cleaner, BG245. It's in the description of the video if you want to have a look at that, where it was much higher. So, I mean, this is graphically representing it, and I'm really surprised, and this is quite nice finding, that this really works and kind of unblocks the injectors, at least with my engine, with that specific whatever it has clogged them. This Wynns diesel injector cleaner seems to have worked quite well. So final words. I mean, it did really work. This Wynns diesel injector cleaner unblocked to some extent the injectors in my 1.6 HDI Peugeot Partner 2007, roughly about 105,000 miles. I didn't show it in the Excel file, but roughly each injector got unblocked by roughly about 6%. This hasn't unblocked them completely. I am sure this is not original status, but I filled up 37 liters, so there was a bit more in the tank. So probably if I had 20 liters or 25 liters in the tank, probably would have been better. So they suggest to do this every 3rd fuel tank. So I'll repeat that experiment. Actually, I'll have 2 more fill ups, and then I repeat the same measurements, put it again, and then see if this will additionally unblock my injectors. I mean, it hasn't blocked it slightly, so this is still a success as compared to my previous experiment with BG245, where there was nothing, literally nothing. This at least worked to some extent. So I'll have a few more of these. I'll repeat that one with the Wynns injector cleaner, so diesel injector cleaner, and I'll probably try some other. I had suggestions in the forum, some liquid moly and then some other stuff, so I'll probably try eventually those. So if you like these videos, let me know what you think in the comment section of the video. I suspect somebody might say, oh yeah, he's fiddled with his data because he wants to sell this or whatever. I am really not affiliated with any of these Wynns. I just really, literally, I would like to keep my engine in top shape. So if I was fiddling with the numbers and the data, I would have done this with a much more expensive BG245. It's 4 times more expensive. I would have done it with the other one rather than with this one. This is pretty cheap. It's £5-6. Maybe one can buy it a bit cheaper here and there. So yeah, thank you very much indeed for watching. If you have any comments and suggestions, let me know in the comments below the video. Thank you very much indeed. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. Subscribe. Thank you.